Hi, I'm Tony Hayton in Ottawa, Canada. And for the past 20 years, I've had the distinct privilege and pleasure of working with America's most unique and interesting group of artists, the Florida Highwaymen. In fact, there are some that would say the Florida Highwaymen are America's most important art movement of the 20th century. The Highwaymen are without a doubt America's most improbable group of artists. Who could ever imagine 26 young African Americans arising from the hatred and turmoil and inhumanity that was the 1950s Jim Crow South and becoming a saga of American art and culture? These artists painted to break free from the past. They painted to live their own lives, to make their own choices, to have that freedom instead of living a life that society would hoist upon them. They painted on construction wallboard. They painted for an honest day's pay. And they painted an ever more endangered and disappearing Floridian landscape. That they would continue to paint for the next 7 decades and create thousands of works of art is in the very least incredible. In the annals of American art and culture, there has never been a group of artists like the Florida Highwaymen, nor, sadly, will there ever be again. When I first stumbled across the Highwaymen, I was excited and entranced, enthralled by the poignancy and the romanticism of their story. They reminded me of a Canadian group of artists known as the Group of Seven, who in the early 20th century had painted and gained considerable notoriety and honor here in Canada and around the world. I felt perhaps my perspective and objectivity of the Highwaymen being Canadian was different, and that I saw things in them that others might not see. I wasn't affected by any preconceptions or stereotypes. I thought that the Highwaymen were an extremely important part of American history and culture and could be tied to the civil rights movement, and of course their story represented the American dream. Yet nobody was doing anything to raise the profile of the Highwaymen, not only within the state of Florida itself, but nationally. So I chose to move the collection to Washington, D.C. in 2005. And since that time, the art has been shown at Howard University. Marianne Carroll, the only lady artist of the group, had the privilege of meeting Mrs. Obama and presenting her a painting. Art from the collection is hung in senators' offices, congressmen's offices, and since that particular time, the art became under the focus of the U.S. ambassador to Canada. He and his wife decided to bring the art north of the border to be shown in my native country, something I never expected to happen. And really, I felt the Highwaymen were a part of American culture and history, and really that's where the art should stay. Of course, since then, the art has been exhibited not only in other cities in Canada, but the U.S. State Department has chosen to take parts of the collection and have it on display at various U.S. embassy buildings in Central America and in Europe and almost fittingly in Africa as well. I truly believe that the Highwaymen haven't met their full respect that they deserve in the United States? Are they being held back by, I hate to say it, by racism or elitism? I don't know. I don't have that answer. I can only see from my perspective. I'm not an American, and yet I feel this is a story that needs to be shared in the United States, that the art needs to be shared. And so I'm up in Canada, and I'm looking after elderly parents. And after 20 years of working with the Highwaymen, I sadly have to say that it's time for me to put the art back in American hands, that Americans can do more justice with the art in the collection than I can. For the art is, a lot of it's sitting in a storage, and my agenda is to have the art shown, the story told, and appreciated. So hopefully we'll find somebody, hopefully it's you, that will see this story for what it is and the art for what it is, and repatriate the collection back to the United States. I think that's what I would like, and the Highwaymen too.